Okay, all quizzes in. Here we go. Factoring, section 3. So, quick recap. All you have to do if you're factoring x squared plus bx plus c, all you have to do is find factors of c that add up to b. Just always remember that right there. Only if it's x squared. Now, if it was like 5x squared, we couldn't do that. So that's actually next section, which I'll teach you next time. I got my own little method for that. But if you got this, x squared here, here's your c, negative 30. Here's your b, negative 13. So factors of negative 30 that add up to negative 13. Factors of negative 30, first ones I think about are 5 and 6 to give me positive 30. So I'm making negative on one to multiply, get negative 30, but they don't add to get negative 13, so I'll X that out. These aren't it. What are the correct ones?
Negative 15 and 2.
Negative 15 and positive 2. If you multiply those, yes, check, you get 30, negative 30. If you add those two, yes, you do get negative 13. Good. So these two lead you to your what? What do they lead you to? Your factors, right? These two lead you to your factors. So our factors are x times x gives me x squared. These two are the next part. Minus 15 because of that negative 15, plus 2 because of that positive 2. These two things are called factors of this because they multiply to give you this. That's a quick recap of how to factor x squared plus bx plus c. Factors of c that add up to b. Alright, nice little puzzle to solve. Now, going back to here, how far did we get? Notice, remember the second one. This one did not factor. Factors of negative 12 that add up to 3. Couldn't do it. So you had to put cannot factor. Cannot be factored. Okay, cannot be factored. Did we get to the difference of squares? Did we get to this right here? We did? Okay, make sure you remember how to do difference of squares because it won't be, later on it won't be this easy. This is x squared minus 7 squared. So how do you do, those of you watching the video, a squared minus b squared. If you have something squared minus something else squared, you do it a plus b, a minus b. That's how you factor a difference of squares. So that's what this is. X squared minus 7 squared. So a is x and b is 7, right? So x minus 7 times x plus 7. That's how you factor a difference of squares. Letter B, it said it was special, but it is special because the final answer, if you find factors of 36 add up to 12, or d plus 6 times d plus 6, it's special because that equals d plus 6 squared. This is called a perfect square trinomial, okay? Because it is a square over here. Same with the last one. Did we do the last one too? I don't remember. Z squared minus 26z plus 169. Did we do that one? No? Go ahead and do that one real quick. Get good at these. Get quick, but not too quick because you might think something works when it actually doesn't. So don't be too quick. Do a quick check in your mind. Does that multiply to get this? Yes. Does that add to get this? Yes. Okay, done. Anybody quick? Annie?
Z minus 13.
Z minus 13. Z minus 13, which makes it Z minus 13 squared. This is also a perfect square. This is a perfect square trinomial because it becomes a square. Yep, negative 13, multiply to get this, and they add to get this. Correct. Alright, so those are some special patterns. Now, I don't know if I got to the equations part. Did I? Did I do any equations last time? This? Did I do example 3? No? Okay, now, this is what I tell you in the beginning of the period. If you have a quadratic equal to 0, which you do, Look at this word though. What are the roots of the equation? You'll want to know what does roots mean. Another word for roots is solutions. But there are actually 4 or 5 different things I could say. I could say, what are the roots? I could say, what are the solutions? I could say, what are the x-intercepts? Those are all actually the same thing. Okay? So when you see a bunch of different problems on my test, I'm going to say it different ways. I'm going to say, what are the roots? You have to think, what are these solutions? I'm going to say, what are the x-intercepts? Oh, that's this, which is the same as solutions. So be careful. How are you going to solve this equation? What are you going to do?
Factor.
Factor, yeah. The only way you know how to write at this moment, well, maybe I shouldn't say, maybe you know another way, but the easiest way to do this right now, anytime I get a quadratic, I'm always asking myself, does it factor? Because why? Because it's easy if it does. Let's factor this. Factors of negative 36 that add up to negative 5. And you would say?
Negative 9.
Negative 9 and 4, right? If I multiply these two, I got negative 36, check. If I add these two, I got negative 5, check. So what's your answer?
9.
Yeah. That's why I asked that question. Because it's so easy for people to be so quick at this. They say, oh, answer. Oh, I see it right here. That's not your answer. These aren't your answer. What does this lead us to? Not yet. The factors. These, we did this to factor this. We didn't do this to solve yet. You understand? We're doing this to factor. And that's what people do right there. They'll say that real quick. So be very careful when doing this. These lead you to the factors. So my factors are x minus 9, right, because of this. And my other factor, x plus 4, which is from this, equals 0. Now you have to know a property to finish this. The property is this. A times B equals 0. What could you tell me about that? A times B equals 0.
1 is 0.
One of them is 0. So either A could equal 0, right? And the whole thing would be 0. Or B could equal 0, correct? And the whole thing would be 0. That's the property you're about to use right here. This whole thing right here is A. This whole thing right here is B. A times B equals 0. All you're going to do is, well, what does that mean? Well, this factor could equal 0 then. If it did, the whole thing would be 0. This factor could equal 0. If it did, the whole thing would be 0. Alright, so this is called the zero product property. Know all these math terms. I know you guys listen, but some of you guys don't write stuff like that down. And then I'll say it later and you'll be like, what is that? I don't understand. Okay? That's why I tell you. Alright? Know your vocab. Alright? It's important. Alright, zero product property says we can do this now. X minus 9 could equal 0, right? A could equal 0. Or x plus 4 could equal 0. Everybody understand the correlation between those two things? Why I did these two things? All right, this could be 0 or this could be 0. Now you can solve, which is x equals 9. And solve this one, minus 4, x equals negative 4. Best answer. If you have two x values, answers, put them together in those nice brackets. Alright? So I'll put it up here. Answer was negative 4, comma, 9. Use these brackets. What if I use parentheses? Would that be correct? No, because then you'd be telling me coordinate x, comma, y, which they're both x's. So be careful. I might take a point off you there if you do. Okay? You're telling me something different if you do say that. Alright, which means the answer really is letter C, negative 4 and 9. Okay, so be careful. Step 1, factor. Write it out. Don't be too quick to throw it out there and say that's my solution. That's not. Step 2, solve using the zero product property. Alright? So why do we use factoring? To solve. That's the whole goal here. Okay? Makes life a lot easier. If that couldn't factor, do you guys know what you would do? Well, you could still solve it, but you just can't solve it by factoring. What other way do you guys know how to solve a quadratic? You've done it. Quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You're going to use that, okay? Well, one of these other sections. I forget what section it is. Okay, be ready for that. All right? So that's why I always say to myself, can this factor? If it does, easy. If it doesn't, it's a little bit of work, time consuming, right? So always ask yourself if it could factor. All right, let's look at example 4 here. It's a little word problem here. Let's see. So on your papers, what I would do is it's talking about a town has a nature preserve. That's what this soul needs to do. It actually probably already has one. I mean, they need to preserve nature around here. Why? So many buildings, right? So many buildings, stuff like that. They need to preserve some green, right? You don't see much green around here, do you? So that's what they're talking about here. We got a nature preserve, and so I'm gonna just draw it here. Here's their area. They have their old nature preserve in here, which was 400 by 600. So their old nature preserve was that. Now, the town wants to do what? They want to add some area. They want to make it bigger. But even more importantly, they want to double the area of the field. Okay. Find the new dimensions. So we want to find the new dimensions. They want to add this land right here. What do you know? How far should they add it? We don't know. That's why they put X, right? We don't know how far to extend it to double it. So that's why we put X over here. So you're going to put X right here. We don't know how far to extend it. We're going to put X over here. We don't know how far to extend it this way. Okay? Now, all we have to do is find X. But we need to make an equation. This is not a linear equation anymore. It's not that simple. We have to make something else. So area. So keywords. Area. How do you find area? Length times width, right? We want to double that area. Do you know that area right here?
Yeah. Yes.
Kinda. You could figure it out, right? 400 times 600 gives you the area of the original field. So do 400 times 600. You get 24,000, 240,000 square, whatever it's talking about, meters. Okay. Now that's the area of this part right here. The question says we want to double that. That's why we're going to put times it by 2, right? 2 times 240,000. That's one part of our equation. That's the total, right? We want to equal 2 times 240,000. Double the area. Now the real question is, what is over here? How do you get double the area? Well, you need dimensions, right? Length. So we need to do length times width. What's the length?
X.
400.
Okay. Yeah, either one. It doesn't matter. But yeah, 400 plus X is the one length. So we write that down. The width, 600 plus X. There's the width. All you have to do is multiply those two. It has to equal double the other one. All you have to do now is solve. Okay? So what I want you to do is this. I want you to multiply over here and take it a couple steps right now. Write that down in your notes. Take it a couple steps. See how far you get. If you need to use a calculator, do so to multiply those things. So when you FOIL, you should end up with x times x squared plus 600x plus 400x is 1000. X plus 600 and 400 make 240,000 equals over here 480,000. Now, what's our goal from here? What's our goal? Find x. How do you find x when it looks like this? Okay, there's one small key that you definitely need to do that if you didn't know that, write it down. Whenever you solve a quadratic, how do you know it's quadratic? Right here. When you solve a quadratic, always make it equal to 0. Then it's a lot easier. You could do it with that over there, but you don't want to do that. Okay, solve it, make it equal to 0. So yes, he said minus 480,000, minus 480,000. Rewrite those things. I'll put it up here. X squared plus 1,000 x minus 240,000. All right, equals 0. Now, how do you solve something like this? You factor it. So far, that's what you know, factoring. Now that looks like, oh, that's going to be a big task. But let's make it easy on ourselves. Let's just think of this. Let's just think of 24 and maybe 10. Okay? 24 and 10. What do you know about negative 24 and 10? 12 and 2. So negative or positive 12, negative 2, right? So we can factor this so far. X plus 12, I'm going to leave some space. X minus 2, leave some space because 12 and 2 don't make 240,000. So, but if we do add some zeros here, it will. What are those zeros? 2 zeros on each one. So here's how I check. Multiply these two. 1,200 times 200. Yes. You get this. You get negative this. Add these up. Yes. You get positive 1,000. You're good. So know how to factor. Equals 0. Now that we did that part, it should be easy from here, right? This equals 0. This equals 0. So x plus 1,200 equals 0. X minus 200 equals 0. Solve these two. X equals negative 1,200. X equals 200. Those, what do those represent though? What do they represent?
How much you need to expand.
How much I need to add? Yeah, how much I need to expand. So what can we do with that? Okay, we can cancel one of these off. Which one can we cancel? Negative, right? Because we can't have negative length, right? Doesn't make sense. That's what happens a lot in word problems. Like in quadratic word problems, a lot of times one of the answers just doesn't work because it's negative. But you better pay attention to that because maybe could be a positive one that doesn't work too. So just check. Yes, can't have negative. Final answer. Well, actually, we're not done with the final answer. We just figured out how much to extend it. What does it want? Find the new dimensions. What's one dimension? 600. We got 400 plus 200 equals, now hopefully people can follow my pen here, 600 by, you figure out the other one. This is 600 plus 200, 800. Here is your final answer. 600 by 800. Everybody understand that problem? Any questions there? Alright, let's get to the last type then. Last type of problem. A new kind of question, but similar to what we've already done. So, what messes people up is that they don't understand the question because they don't know all the vocab. So here's some more vocab. It says, find the zeros of the function. Okay? So here, it says by rewriting the function in intercept form. What is it? How can we rewrite something in intercept form? What is basically intercept form? X minus 5, x plus 2. What is that basically? They're in factors, right? So all we're going to do is take letter A, and we're going to factor letter A. That's intercept form, right? So go ahead and factor letter A. Y equals, if you factor that, that should be quick for you right now. Fraction negative 12 that add up to negative 1, which are x, what? Minus 4, x plus 3. We just took this and put it in intercept form. Nice, good. Now what is it asking for? That's not what it's asking for. It says find the zeros. Now this is a little bit different, but the same. Okay? The only thing different is it has y equals. All you're going to do is, what this means is, what values of x make y equal to 0? That's all you're going to do is do this. You're going to replace y with 0. That's all you're going to do. That's what you did last problem. You didn't replace it. It was already there. Right? The last problem said 0 equals x minus 4, x plus 3. Right? So when it says find the zeros, what does that mean? When y is 0, what is the x value that makes y 0? So in this case right here, what is the x values that make y equal to 0? You can tell me just by looking at it, right? X equals 4 and x equals negative 3 if you set both of these equal to 0, right? Now look, we can do this in our calculator. You notice the picture. All you have to do is hit second calculate, and there is something called, it says 0 in your calculator. It'll give you each of these zeros if you set the right boundaries. I'll teach you how to do that next time, setting boundaries. You could probably figure it out yourself. Set a boundary to the left, set a boundary to the right. It'll guess, it'll pick those points for you. Okay? So here's a 0, x equals negative 3, and you could choose the other one, x equals 4. These are called the zeros of the function. What else are they? They're x-intercepts. What else? They're roots. These two things are roots of the function. What else? They're solutions of the function. You see how all these words are intertwined? Only a little bit different situation in all of these questions, right? Just a little bit different situation. But really all meaning the same exact thing. Okay? So, you go ahead and do letter B. Find the zeros of letter B. Probably very quick for some of you. 5 seconds or less. So if you rewrote it in intercept form, it would look like x what? Plus 6. And you could write it beside it for the moment. But really this is x plus 6 squared, right? Now if you solve these two, when it equals 0 over here, your answers are negative 6 and negative 6, right? Which really means just negative 6. If you looked at the calculator, how would you see negative 6 and negative 6? You wouldn't. You would only see it touching one place at negative 6. Okay? Alright guys, good job. I'll see you next time. Study up, do your homework.